What up, football fans? Welcome to a special Wednesday bonus episode of The Extra Point. Stoked to be hanging with y'all tonight. We are going to have a special live auction draft Dynasty startup draft going tonight. I've got a special guest, Kendall, my buddy Kendall, here with me from the Fantasy Football Tavern. We'll bring him on here in a minute, but I want to bang through these updates and all these announcements so that we can get into the main event. You can catch the Extra Point live every Thursday night at 7 p.m. on YouTube. I'm also on Spotify, and you can also follow along or listen along in that case on Patreon. We're going to be excited to bring you this auction draft tonight, and then again tomorrow night with a totally separate league, but another auction draft. So if you're newer to Dynasty, or if you're a seasoned Dynasty player and auction is new to you, jump in. This is going to be great for you to get a good sense of where different values are for different players in each of the leagues. We're going to be really excited to be talking through all of the different roster breakdowns next week on the main show. We'll go through more auction tips and tricks. Didn't want to do a pre-show to give away all of mine and Kendall's strategies, but we'll be hanging out for about an hour tonight and going through as much as we possibly can for the draft. And then obviously the draft will take about 3 or 4 hours. So we don't want to do a live stream that long. So we'll go for about an hour tonight. And then if you want to go ahead and check out, how the draft actually finished up, where we see some strengths in some areas of certain guys' teams, be sure to go ahead and jump in next Thursday where we'll be doing a recap of tonight's, the Super Bowl draft, and then tomorrow, the annexation of Puerto Rico. Shout out to all my 90s kids and a little throwback to the Little Giants. I've got Victorious, my buddy here in the comments saying, what up, Vike? Good to see you, man. Excited for you to be here tonight. If anyone else is in the comments, especially as the draft starts to go, we'll be sure to go ahead and feature your comment. If you have questions throughout, as always, throw them in the chat. We'll be happy to, myself and Kendall, be happy to talk through them. So without further ado, what up, Kendall? How you doing, brother?
What up, Phil? I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on. Should be fun. I like doing all these leagues. The one thing they never talk about with fantasy football content creation is when you start joining leagues kind of with each other that are doing videos, the competition just gets ratcheted up. So I'm pretty pumped. I think it's the first time we've done like a live draft where it's a real league. So this will be pretty interesting, but can't think of a better way to spend the night.
Yeah, I think it is. I think you're right, man. I think it's the first time we've done this. I know, obviously, on our affiliate channel, right, like the Get Right Fantasy Network, the guys are hanging out every Friday night doing mock drafts. We just did another mock draft last week with Jim Coventry was actually a guest on that, and certainly that was focused on the Scott Fish Bowl. So obviously switching gears from Dynasty to Best Ball. But really cool to be able to play with you in another league. It's how we became friends, right? I mean, we started kind of tossing trades back and forth. I think you and I, for the most part, see things pretty similarly. So we saw a lot of the same values in terms of what we were looking for, and guys that we felt was going to be a fair trade for each of our teams, and ultimately became friends, and now we're doing stuff like this together. So hoping that guys in this new league that we don't know, obviously we want to see what they're all about and see what kind of content, they might have questions about. And then obviously for the listeners at home, super excited to hopefully give them a bigger exposure to what auction is all about. Because I think a lot of people are a little hesitant, to get into auction because they're so similar, so used to being in a similar format with Snake. So let's go ahead. I know I've got a couple of guys here, ready to get drafted. So let's go ahead and share the draft board, and we will kick this thing off. Give me 1 second, just bring up the actual draft board. I think we are ready to rock and roll here, man.
Dude, I
gotta say announcement quickly to the guys here in the chat, because I'm sharing my personal screen. Maybe keep the memes coming, but keep them so that they're not going to offend anybody who might be watching this. I just saw the dancing panda, which I think is hilarious here, but it got me thinking maybe not the I didn't realize that as we start to get into it. Without further ado, as I get this started here tonight, this is a 1 quarterback league. It's going to be double running back, triple wide receiver, single tight end, 3 flex. It is a 25-man roster. This is a 4-point passing touchdowns tonight, and then just your regular full PPR. So Go ahead. As we can see here, Jalen Hurts getting ready to go off the board. Bergie 666, our first guy to nominate. For those that are unfamiliar with auction, basically the order of the draft doesn't really matter. What we're actually looking at is each person in the order will nominate a player of their choosing. So you can see Jalen Hurts going off the board here at some point whenever his price is guaranteed. You'll get 30 seconds to nominate a player, and then we'll have 30 seconds worth of bidding. And you can see the clock here. Once it gets under 10 seconds, it resets after every new bid. So there's no way to steal a player with 1 second left. That's not really what we're trying to do here. We do want to try to get, good value for the players and obviously see where guys ultimately are ranking them. Kendall, I know you and I have done a lot of auctions together. What are some of your initial thoughts? Obviously you're a pretty seasoned vet, but for those who may be new to auction, any advice, any kind of just quick overviews for folks who may be, feeling like, hey, I'm not sure what this is all about?
I'll try to keep it brief, and you can expound on as many or as few of them as you want to. All right, number one, auction. You can go into it with zero prep if you want to. I would recommend, this is probably the one format where even if you're really prepped, I recommend have a piece of paper or a little spreadsheet up. You don't got to get crazy, but I do recommend just keeping basic track of what you're spending at each position, just so you can figure out what you have left to spend at various areas.
Yeah. And it's great advice. And I think to kind of, like you said, to expound on that a little bit, look, the computer will not allow you to not have a full roster here. So you can see on the main screen, if you're watching the show, you can see a number on the right hand, which is the budget that we all start with, $500. And you can see the number on the left, the max that you can actually spend. So as we start to get deeper into the draft, that will change, of course, as guys start to, get their players. I like that. I think that's always really easy. My big advice, to be just very kind of straight up, just like you said, track what you're spending. But I always really like to have kind of my own personal rankings and then kind of add in what guys are going for, within those rankings. So if I see a player, for instance, we see Jalen Hurts going off the board here, $54. If I have players ranked higher than Jalen Hurts, maybe I know I would be comfortable spending more than that. If I have players ranked lower than that, maybe I want to spend less than that, just to kind of give a quick example. So always good to kind of have your own rankings and then just sort of see where you see value. Because unlike Snake, where hey, maybe I could get this player in a later round, there are no real quote unquote rounds in auction, right? It's every player, having a bid. So here we see Bijan Robinson coming off the board as our third nominee, and man, guys are fighting, and I get it. Probably the RB1 here in Dynasty, and the price is already at $82 and potentially going off the board here. We go, another bid coming in. But yeah, I've not done one of these where I've had to do the live stream and the
I know,
auction.
is it crazy?
I need to pay attention.
So every time you stop talking for half a second, that means you're into this player.
I mean, if I go quiet, it's because I'm bidding a guy, right? You might know when I'm really into a guy here. If I start, I may have to have you take over, man.
Dude, anytime you need to throw it to me, man. How do you feel
I'll
about
tell you what.
bidding? Yeah, man. Oh, this will be. I'm so pumped. This format with a live stream is going to be absolutely wild. I'm super pumped for it, and I think I'm going to win this bid. By the way, just who am I bidding against here? Give me some Narek. Give me Bijan. I want him.
Looks like you and my buddy Mike here. Mike's in a couple leagues. In fact, he's in a league with us, Kendall. But man, he's pretty seasoned. He knows his guys. He knows the board really well. Got a question here from Victorious coming in. How do you feel about bidding up a player you have no intention of buying? I'm not going to answer that from my perspective, but I will tell you honestly, I think a lot of guys do it. I don't know, Kendall, have you seen that? And I know you've been in a lot of auctions. Have you seen that as something that's, kind of start as they get into the later nominations? Do you see a lot more guys starting to maybe bid up players that they're not going to buy, or maybe even nominating a player that they really don't want on their roster?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with nominating a player that you don't want on your roster. Always a great strategy early. You can't do that super late, by the way, for those new to auctions, because you have to bid $1 on them. But I think it's just generally a better strategy to nominate someone you don't want. they usually go in different directions that you don't expect. So, yeah. Now, in terms of bidding up, that's a great question, right? Bidding up players you don't want. This is something that takes more thought than I think the average question of this nature, right? Because there's two sides to it for me, right? Side one is how flexible are you in playing the board if
Mm-hmm.
you do buy them at somewhat of a value, right? But are you so off of them that you don't want the value, right? If you're someone who definitely can and will play the board, the way it comes, you're very, very fluid. If you draft in tiers, you like player ranges, you can kind of figure out how that might go.
Yep.
I do. I think there's a percentage I might set though. Like I'm gonna if JJ didn't get up to 110, I was gonna price set.
Sure.
Right.
Yep.
But at least like if it's like a 20% discount, if you've stayed fluid and stayed water, I think definitely get it to within 20% of where you feel kind of like the true value really is,
Yeah.
right? 15 to 10% is where you really got to be careful because you very much will get stuck with somebody. So do
Right.
it, but do it at a position that you can get stuck with the bag for the
Yep.
most part. I think
Yep.
that's the danger. There's some situations where like I will take him as long as they are a value. I wouldn't do that at players you're just out on. Right. In redraft,
Yeah.
we call this a trap, right? We're like, hey, when this player falls in ADP and you're like, well, I have to take him because they're a value. That is a best ball mania trap. There's a reason they're a value. They'll probably keep falling. And this is a dynasty startup. So players that you're kind of off on are going to lose value for the most part if you're right. So
Agreed.
I'd say keep it within 20% of where you kind of feel a fair price is. I wouldn't go crazy beyond 15 to 10%. That's where you're getting too dicey.
Yeah, and I think I love what you just said there, right? And I think a lot of folks who are newer to auction or who maybe are, only have done one or two auction startup drafts, they don't think of it in terms of percentages. They think of it in terms of total dollars, right? I have $500 budget, I can spend X, or I'm willing to spend, X on this player. And I think that's where you kind of fall into the trap of, just trying to bid up guys that you feel. And look, Justin Jefferson, no one's going to be upset about getting stuck with Justin Jefferson, right? I think he's obviously a marquee player. He's certainly a top 5 guy and a blue chip player in the league. So to me, I think what you're talking about is just kind of being smart with your budget. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, have a plan for how you want to come out of this draft, right? I know I need to leave this draft with Justin Jefferson. I'm going to go pay for him. And that means that if I do end up, paying more than I had initially anticipated, well, then where can I cut costs in other areas, right? Can I cut a secondary running back, a little bit cheaper? Can I get a tight end on the cheap? Can I go and get, a wide receiver 3 or potentially a rookie that I really believe in because I spent more than I had initially thought I would? For example, Justin Jefferson. And here we see CeeDee Lamb on the board already over $100. Justin Jefferson just went for 137. So these blue chip, receivers, they're going to be expensive, and you're going to pay, obviously in that 15 to 20% if you want to have these guys on your team. So we're going to see how this draft plays out, man. There's some guys that are they're going for it. They're going for it early, and they're, to be fair, they're paying for the guys that they want. And again, once these guys are off the board, they're off the board. I think that's for, if you're coming into Dynasty as a redraft player and you miss out on a CeeDee Lamb or a Justin Jefferson in your redraft leagues, sure, that might be difficult for this season, but you can grab them again next year. In Dynasty now, Justin Jefferson off the board here and CeeDee Lamb about to be off the board, you're trading for him. And I don't know if that trade gets done.
Expensive than JJ. Oh, baby.
CD for those that can't see the board that might just be listening to the audio. CD's already at 143 and Justin Jefferson went for 137. So CeeDee Lamb off the board here for 142.
Oh, you get to nominate, buddy.
I get to nominate. I'm on the clock here, and I'm going to go ahead and see how the field feels about the tight end 1 from last season here.
Oh, that was my move.
I want to see how the field feels about tight end
player
1.
I was gonna nom.
Sam Laporta, and away we go. I set the bidding at $30. Excuse me, at $29, and Sam Laporta now up to 32. And now, Kendall, you're in it, so I'll talk for a little while. Looks like you're on Laporta here for some bidding. So Sam Laporta, tight end 1 from last year, obviously, breaking rookie records. While Kendall's obviously bidding on this player here, I won't pull you in, but For me, I think Laporta is probably the.
Wow,
Did you win that,
Laporta went
Kendall?
so cheap.
Oh,
No, I didn't.
$48. Okay, 48 to Mike.
I meant to hit the button, dude. I was too busy thinking of
Well,
a
don't.
take. It's so
I was
cheap.
trying to talk, so you didn't have to bring you in here,
Oh
man.
my god, my entire strategy was try to get Laporta for like $55.
Well, sorry if I
Oh
threw you off.
Jesus.
And now I've
Man.
lost my train of thought. So here we go. So Sam Laporta off the board.
What a steal,
Here
by the way.
comes-
Laporta for $48 is an absolute
That's a
steal.
good price.
I just thought it'd be
Yeah.
funny to win him right after like he was my keynote, like sell high now.
Yeah. I mean, look, to me, Sam Laporta. Oh, I remembered my train of thought. To me, Sam Laporta is still probably the de facto wide receiver 2 in that offense behind Amon-Ra. I think you and I, Kendall, both would probably agree. We expect a big uptick in targets for Jahmyr Gibbs this season. But I'm not a huge believer in Jamison Williams. I think he's a good player, but I also don't believe that he's just going to take the lion's share of the work away from Laporta and Gibbs. Do you have a different take on that, or do you kind of think Laporta is still going to see a fair amount of targets in this offense and in the Lions offense?
Well, now that I didn't win him, I mean, I'm just gonna trash him. I watched my previous video. I think he has one of the weaker cases to be a high end, like unanimous tight end one.
Yeah.
In Dynasty is my take.
Okay.
His overall points on the season wasn't crazy. Tight ends, touchdowns aren't a sticky stat. He had 10 touchdowns, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
I could easily see that being 6 next year. He had 3 touchdowns in one game.
Yep.
I just think everything went his way, including defenses just forgetting about him. I don't think that's the case going forward. And now that he's a known commodity, people will scheme for him. It's not that he's not a good player. It's not the defense will just be able to shut him down. It's that when you look at like startup rankings for Laporta, he's going in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
And it's just it's
snake
just
drafts.
insane. He's not
Well,
neighbors. I don't understand that level of valuation. I just think it's sexy because the tight end marketplace is one where the best tight ends are also the youngest.
Right.
And there's this, you're kind of seeing that at wide receiver to some extent, but we're talking like the 22 and 23-year-olds are, like legitimately cheap. In terms, they're not cheap. They're the best. So I think that in Dynasty, there's this combination of like, oh my goodness, like who's trying to outbid me on Rice? You're gonna have to finish this point.
Rasta and our boy Rasta from Get Right Fantasy Network and Kendall going back and forth here on Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice going off the board for
$13.
12.
Oh my god.
This
is the worst. This is the worst idea we ever could have done. We were gonna have such a bad draft from commentating.
No, we're gonna have a great draft. It's gonna be fine.
This is the cheapest I've ever seen. Like my wife and I have a thing. I don't know if you have the same internal sentiment, but there's guys that I think are just like bad for the badge, bad for the NFL, bad for so many things. And I'm like, I don't play high enough stakes fantasy to like. I just don't want to own some guys and be forced to want them to do well so that I can do well in life. Does that make sense?
It does. I think the hard part for me with, and we'll just talk about him for a second because we're on it here. I think the hard part for me with Rashee Rice is just because of where we're drafting here in June, we just don't know what's going to happen. I'm okay with risk. I think fantasy is all about risk. I think at the end of the day, we know inherently that risk is built in, but I could see an 8-game suspension or 12-game suspension coming for him. I just could. I think that's in the range of outcomes. I think everybody has sort of assumed that, it's going to be a 4-game suspension. It's not going to be, a big deal because he's at OTAs, because he's doing stuff with the Chiefs right now. It's going to be all good. I think you have a situation where he's very fortunate that he didn't injure somebody in a more major way. I think it's very, very lucky for him that he obviously there's no fatalities because this would be Henry Ruggs 2.0. I have Rashee Rice in 1 league. I haven't put him on the trade block. I really don't know what to do with him. I'm holding. I think that's what I can honestly say is just hold right now because, like I said, that suspension, sure, if it's 4 games and everyone that has Rashee Rice is, myself included on that 1 league I have him in, great. It's awesome. if it's a 12-game suspension, I mean, fantasy playoffs start in week 14, week 15. That's the majority of the season here. So Tyreek Hill, I'll talk for a minute because I think you're in on Amon-Ra here. Tyreek Hill going off the board here at
I'm out on Amon-Ra, by the way.
$97. Oh, okay, perfect. Amon-Ra here right now currently priced at 113 and kind of still going. So I mean, look, we're talking about, kind of the blue chip players coming off the board early. Every auction is different. Kendall, have you seen, auctions where it's mostly, is this kind of what you've seen in your experience, the norm? Is the blue chips go off pretty early, or have you seen kind of a mix? I think someone nominated Christian Kirk pretty early. What's kind of been your experience with blue chips versus kind of those wide receiver and running back 2s and 3s?
Yeah, I think everyone nominates. I think usually like the first 2 rounds of nominations are like top guy. At least the first round of nominations, the most common, in my opinion, is someone most people will nominate like a top guy that they don't want, right? I want to draft Justin Jefferson, so I will nominate Bijan, and vice versa, right? I want Bijan, so I'll nominate JJ, right? I want late QB, so I'll nominate Mahomes. Something along those lines, but it's always the top guys because everyone else wants everyone else to spend their money so they can get their guy. That's typically how it works out, and because all the top guys in Dynasty, I had one quarterback, are all wide receivers. I do see that wide receiver is kind of what just dominates. And then it becomes this game of, all right, so everyone makes one big kind of splash purchase, and it's usually the race to see who's going to do 2 or 3 big purchases. But I think the draft really takes shape as soon as everyone has one big purchase, or if like, I'd say 8 out of the, in this case, 10 teams. So if like 7 to 8 teams have a big purchase, and 10 teams, that's going to be pretty common. And so you go into these bids with some people being able to just buy anything, but you have that first sort of reserved hesitation betting, and you see in those first couple of values what kind of happens. It's already happened in this draft with some savvy players nominating some people that people are going to be scrambling. It's a pretty quick clock. I think Rice was a ridiculous discount. So well played, Rasta. Obviously a seasoned veteran, one of our affiliates, one of our boys that get right, rolling them sleeves up. But that's what I see early on. I'm normally one that tries to get in on a big purchase early. I feel like there's always pretty good value at getting in on a big purchase early. And then like when you start a tier, you typically pay less than the middle of that tier who has to like get bid up to that tier.
Good point.
Didn't follow my own advice. Should have just bought Bijan for about 100. Definitely planned. Oh my! And we're just letting Allen go for 52.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I got caught up talking there, but that's QB2 off the board price wise here. Jalen Hurts setting the market at 54, Josh Allen at 51.
So that's a good point though. This was a one where I was gonna snap click just to price set. Because kind of felt like a steal. But I'll tell you right now, I'll tell everyone listening, in a one quarterback triple flex we're starting 10 with one quarterback. I'm punting quarterback. I am 100% punting quarterback. You can take them all. I will start Bryce Young, Bo Nix, Drake May, and JJ McCarthy for about $15 at most.
So it's interesting that you bring that up because Victoria's here in the comments asking, Amon-Ra went for more than JJ. That's a surprise. Is McCarthy driving the price of JJ down? And I know we need to start saying McCarthy and Jefferson because they're both technically JJs, but how do you feel about that? Do you think JJ McCarthy is maybe lowering the value of Justin Jefferson right now? Let's obviously it's a dynasty show, but maybe take a look at both, in redraft and in dynasty values. What are your thoughts there?
Ask me one more time. You're gonna have to do this a couple times.
So
it's very rare this happens, but
JJ McCarthy. Victorious is asking if JJ McCarthy is driving the price of Justin Jefferson down.
Yep, makes sense. That's a surprise. He is driving JJ's price down, but it's not just JJ. It's overwhelming sentiment. It's every outlet is talking about the pros and cons, and there's a lot of cons to what can happen.
I can take over here if you want to get on this Jamar Chase and not lose him.
No, I can.
Okay, all right.
We're just driving the price.
Trying to be a good host here. Make sure you get the guys you want.
Why so much though? Is it just me or is I don't know. I feel like this is a little. I don't know if I'm not doing it.
It's a single quarterback league, so I think you're going to see the prices for the premier running backs and the premier wide receivers. Are obviously going to be pretty high. those are the most valuable players. And for those that are listening that can't see the board, for those that can see the board, I know it's auction, but if you think about a snake draft, if you were in a snake draft, 10 team, 12 team, and you're at the top 3 or 4 picks in the draft, you're probably at a single quarterback league. You're probably going to be taking one of the blue chip wide receivers, would be my guess. Sure, you could put Josh Allen in that mix. I've seen CJ Stroud going at the 102, 103, but to me, I think what you're seeing in this auction draft is, even though it's a different format, it's still mirroring what I think we would normally see in a snake draft, where the blue chip wide receivers, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, their prices are getting up into the 130s here, 140s. And the quarterbacks, Josh Allen just went for $51. And that's, I think to me, that's kind of what I've done a ton of these. It's kind of what I expected.
I think it makes a lot more sense in 10 team. I got to miss in 12 team. I am significantly more reserved. In 10 team, where like a studs and duds approach, in my opinion, is a little bit more viable because the waiver wire is more viable.
Agreed.
Upside dart throws are a little bit more, they're cheaper, they're easier to acquire. It's all about consolidation trades and like getting into like this destructive force, because everyone's good in 10 team for the most part. I think that makes a lot of sense for why these super top tier difference makers are going for, maybe 10% or so, 10, 15% more than I've seen them go when it's a really sort of sharp. By the way, great picking up in the comments, JJ and Chase on the same team. That will be really interesting to watch how this plays out.
Yeah, Raf Danis there. I didn't see that. I've got a screen up, a secondary screen here where it's all the players, so I can't see the full board right now. Wow, Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. I mean, that's about as high T as it gets, man. I mean, that's a really, again, in a dynasty format where you're starting 3 wide receivers. I'm really interested to see how his team plays out, because he's obviously paid for both, right? 136 for Jamar Chase and about 137 for Jefferson. So, certainly paid for them. Again, we've seen, some quarterbacks go for pretty cheap relative to what the receivers are going for. So yeah, man, interested to see how this plays out. Look, the other thing is it's, about 25 minutes into the draft, guys are, excited. People have, money in their pocket. They're ready to burn some of that cash. I'm interested. Oh, Philly Bulldogs. Interesting here. I thought maybe he'd be in. Oh, he's on AJ Brown with Jalen Hurts.
I was gonna say the stack, right? The
stack, right? And maybe if he doesn't win Brown, he'll be in on Devonta Smith here a little bit later. But yeah, to me, it's interesting that even though it's not best ball stacking in Dynasty, obviously still can be very, very valuable for your team. So we'll see how the draft plays out. But Kendall, with about 12, 13 guys off the board here, what stands out to you so far?
Okay, it stands out to me that we have this trend of we're just going to nominate wide receivers till the cows come home until we eliminate the super top tier. Okay, we finally got a quarterback, but that was just fun. I like when the whole draft gets like locked into like, this is what we're doing for the next 20 minutes. Okay.
Yep.
Like we're all having a cocktail. I mean, we're not all having a cocktail, but it's Fantasy Football Tavern. Okay. That's
you are. Yeah.
It's on brand for me that I am basically hammered already. But
no swearing on my show, but otherwise let it enjoy yourself.
No, I like your family. I want them to all like me, that type of thing. No, I don't casually swear when I get drunk. I just start talking about fantasy football with people that definitely went into the conversation talking about football. That's
yeah, exactly. I love it. I got to
I don't know that negative here, so throwing out the term like negative regression.
Give me 1 second. Patrick Mahomes, by the way, for those that are paying attention, going off the board as the new QB1 at $61. And then I've just nominated Travis Etienne here. Trying to show the running backs a little love. We only have Breece Hall and Bijan on the board. And look, Travis Etienne was RB3 last year. My prediction is probably in the 80s. If you're saying Bijan and Breece went for 94 and 95 respectively, I'd expect Travis Etienne to probably sell for about $87 here. That'd be my guess. Guy was the RB3 last season. I believe, I'll be honest, I don't believe in the Tank Bigsby taking work away. How do you feel about some of that coach speak we're seeing or hearing in Jacksonville right now?
I think he's going to take away work. I think it increases the efficiency though, is kind of where I'm at with Etienne. Like I think ETN suffered from just getting a lot of these. I was a big fan of basically every running back that the Cardinals have, and then Cliff Kingsbury did this weird thing where it was just run it up the middle a million times. If you remember those seasons, I think ETN suffered from similar very very poor efficiency because he was just the only guy that were comfortable running out there. And I think for a guy that explosive, I mean everybody wants a million touches. I think he's a guy that would have been a little bit happier. His body would have been a little bit happier. He would have had better vision, better lungs if he had a few less touches where he just didn't need to do the grind work, because he was doing the grind work and the finesse work, right?
Yep.
I want to bring in somebody with fresh legs to go and just like drive into a tackle for 3 seconds and just, do a full spar, where you're like, you're just gassed after a few seconds. And I think he would have some more explosive plays from that. I still like him. You know me, I'm like, I hate running backs in Dynasty. I want my super young ones. I want to take them. I feel like that's the way you gain value, is you never gain value by buying an older productive running back unless you win a title. ETN is kind of threading that needle for me where he's still young. He's definitely not in the like older tier of running backs, but I do see that his workload is going to consistently go down. So I am not overfading the critics who are saying, "Oh, he's going to get a bunch of work taken." No, his efficiency numbers will go
I'm
up
sorry to
as
interrupt
fast
you.
as I can go.
It's your nomination, by the way. I didn't want you to run out of time. I apologize for interrupting you.
No. We're good.
Yeah.
We're good. I might just nominate a guy and just go get him.
I would say go for it. And Victoria's here saying I predict Etienne goes for about $60 or so. Etienne just sold for 77. My guy Mike here with a Christian Kirk and Travis Etienne on his team. So curious to see if he comes for Trevor Lawrence here a little bit later today with that Jacksonville stack. So Gibbs on the board, and we should see big numbers for this one.
Don't do this to me, guy. This is my dude.
Go get him, buddy. Go get him.
I want Gibbs. I'm going to overpay for him. I'm going to make you almost overpay for him, whoever's in here.
I can't even submit an offer because the offers are coming in so quick. Every time I try to click the button, it goes gray on me. So I'm going to let this settle down for a minute.
Who am I picked to?
I can't even get an offer in.
Billy's in here.
There we go. I got an offer
in there. Ruskin will be in there just to screw with me. No problem.
I will be in there. Well, but it's not to screw with you. You know I'm a Gibbs guy. You know that you and I see running backs fairly similarly. We're both really in on the top guys, and then we're fairly comfortable with, maybe a punt play or maybe just kind of a, fill it in with an RB2 later. I think we're looking at more of a hero RB build.
Bitter. You're gonna have to. I'm so locked into this bid that I'm gonna spend too much money. Come on, why didn't I just buy Bijan for 94? What am I doing
you get
here?
Gibbs for 96. There you go. It's only $2 more.
Yeah, it's already an overspend. Who did that?
Me.
I'm gonna go.
I think Matty Wayland here is Mike's back in it. We've got 3 for those that can't see the board. We've got 3 bidding on Jahmyr Gibbs here, and the price $99. Now it's $100. 101.
You're absolutely killing me. Vike, I will announce what I'm doing.
I'm gonna. This is a great show, man. I'm having so much fun. Kendall, you can't announce who you want.
Fine, I'll buy him. 103. Who gives a shit?
I apologize for everybody that's watching here. My screen just had a little issue. You're going to see a screen change here real quick.
You get him. You spent 77 on ETN and you shouldn't. You spent 94. He's your flex. No problem.
There are worse problems to have than having Jahmyr Gibbs in your flex spot. I'll be honest. I know Mike pretty well. I've been in about 3 or 4 auction drafts with him. This is pretty on brand for him. He goes and gets his guys and he gets them early. I'll be honest. He always has good teams. He makes really good trades. He's always competitive. I don't know if he's listening to the show or not, but at the end of the day, he's solid. He knows what he's doing. He's really sharp. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him probably go and buy 1 or 2 more blue chip players here before we wrap this stream up in the first hour here. So Christian McCaffrey.
He's a great partner.
On the board. Yeah, no, Mike's a great partner. He's awesome. I've done some really good business with him over the last couple of years. Jahmyr Gibbs resetting the running back market at 103, and now Christian McCaffrey on the board here coming in at 83. Kendall, I know we talked about this on your show the other day, and you kind of felt like Christian McCaffrey in the top of the second round maybe wasn't the best value given his age. does the 2-year contract extension and his usage in San Francisco sway you, or do you still kind of feel like, McCaffrey is still not at the top of your board, or maybe inside that, top 5 RBs?
He's outside of the top 7 RBs for me, probably.
Okay.
Maybe 8. Here's the thing. Here's my big take on McCaffrey. When it comes to, this is format dependent. Obviously, we're all talking about Dynasty here, right?
Yep.
But here's my challenge. Okay, 2-year contract extension, that's great and all, right? I was never one to think McCaffrey was injury prone. Okay, I was
Right.
never on that. My best year of fantasy football was the year after McCaffrey was crazy injured and people were kind of off on him. Because I drafted a lot of him and traded for him. But my point is, he's still playing running back on a team with a lot of weapons who would prefer to win the game in the first quarter and sit McCaffrey so they can win a title. I think you're going to see snap percentages under 50% after halftime if they're as good as I think they should be, right? I think, what if McCaffrey just gets injured? Then you're spending this much capital on a guy who's essentially dust year one. Because if he gets injured this year and has to nurse back to health next year, he's on a 2-year contract. He's got a 2-year window for your dynasty team. You could literally spend late second, third round startup capital on a guy who essentially never helps you win a title. That for me is just a mistake. I'm a big fan of you don't ever win your league in your draft, but you can lose it. And I like staying as open as possible. I can win without Christian McCaffrey, and there are cases where you just can't win with him. And that's my challenge with him, is he narrows you into such a tiny window of win right now. Make every good trade right now. Fill your league out right now. And I want more time to do so.
Yeah, I think, to me, it's interesting seeing McCaffrey go off the board here for $1 more than Breece Hall and $2 more than Bijan. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, of course, but at the end of the day, the youth and the longevity we expect from Bijan and Breece, to me, is really what you're paying for. I do think Christian McCaffrey can win you a title. I think everybody would probably agree with that statement. At the end of the day, I think there is some risk that's inherently baked in because of the age, but he's basically he's a 2-for-1 player. He's basically a hybrid wide receiver playing as a running back. And I think when you can buy that, I'm curious to see my buddy Mike Chitwood here. He's grabbed him. I'm curious to see what the rest of his roster looks like, because at the end of the day, I would put Christian McCaffrey on those win now teams versus somebody that I'm trying to build around as my hero RB, like a Bijan, a Breece, or a Gibbs. So yeah, I'm just interested to see like what his roster is going to end up looking like here at the end of the draft. Is he going to take more of a win now approach, or is McCaffrey going to be his only, quote unquote older player? But I also think at the end of at the end of each season, right, when we look at our guys going to repeat what they've done, to me, McCaffrey's the only player in San Francisco whose touches are guaranteed, right? We talk about this a lot with wide receivers.
Well,
it could be a Brandon Ayuk. Well, Purdy, sure. But like, it could be an Ayuk week, which means Debo and George Kittle don't get a ton, right? It could be we all know the George Kittle weeks when it's, 2 touchdowns and 97 yards. That means someone else has to suffer. So I think McCaffrey is the one player in San Francisco that you can always bet on is going to get end zone work, or goal line work, with chances at touchdowns, and is going to get red zone work. So we'll see.
So hear me out. Hear me out with McCaffrey. Let me throw this at you, right?
Yeah.
Do you agree or disagree? End of season, playoff time. Mike, I love you, but I'm going to pick on you here for just a minute, okay? And I say I love you. You know Phil more than you know me, but we've gotten to know each other a little bit, okay? We've done some good business together. We've done some deals. He's very solid. Tell me, right, that at come playoff time, okay, you are a McCaffrey owner that are not making the playoffs. I guess I'm not picking on Mike, actually. It's going to work out in his favor, okay? You think you could flip ETN for McCaffrey? If you're the person who just wants to get younger, you want ETN. If you're the person who wants to win now, you're going to want McCaffrey, right? I think that's the type of not necessarily 1-for-1, but pretty damn close, that you can get done, where you get, like, we're talking a $20 discount. We're talking auction values here, but just where they went McCaffrey one for $20 more than ETN.
Yeah.
Right. And that I think you can trade for McCaffrey later in the year if you definitely need him, and you're going to get the discount of, if he's not on a playoff roster, it's going to make a lot of sense.
Would you take McCaffrey for Etienne straight up? Let's say let's say you're the Etienne owner and I'm the McCaffrey owner. I offer you McCaffrey for Etienne 1-to-1 trade. Would you take that trade?
Would I take that trade? I'm keeping Etienne. Oh, shit,
You're going to keep Etienne.
Okay, should I buy Wilson? Chat, what do you think?
Go for it.
I'm against
$97 looks like a steal right now, under $100. I mean, we've seen. I mean, he's going with Tyreek. Mike's down to Mike's draft's about over here, so
I just want $71
left. But look, I mean, the thing we know about some of these guys that are in the league here. Obviously, Kendall, you and I played against a couple of them. And I actually, Kendall, I'd put not right now because I know you've only got Zay Flowers on your team. Which, by the way, Zay Flowers for $41, an absolute steal.
I thought so.
I don't.
I was waiting for the applause.
I'll be honest, I was in on it because I was looking at the price and I was like, that's a steal. But then I was like, well, I'm trying to run this show, so I don't know what your team's going to look like week one.
Buy a player. Let me
my guys are two of my guys are off the board. The price was just too much for me to afford. I'll be honest. I was hoping CD would sell for probably about that $100 to $110 range as soon as he hit that 120. I was like, that's too much for me. But I'll be transparent. I think your teams. When I look at your roster, I don't know what you're going to have in week one because you do so much trading. And we see Mike here, for those that can see the board in the position 2 NFMTR. I don't know what his team's going to look like week one either because he does so much trading as well. So, I think for me, it's an interesting auction strategy to just buy the most high value players that you can, knowing that you're going to maneuver the trade market. Because at the end of the day, like you just said, you're not winning your league in your draft, but you can lose it. I don't think you can lose it if you've got Garrett Wilson, Travis Etienne, Bijan Robinson, and Jahmyr Gibbs. To me, that's a win, right? Whether you don't have a ton of money for the rest of this draft or not, ultimately, I think what you have is you have a lot of money in capital in terms of player values that you can then go ahead and try to maneuver the trade market for. So I wouldn't be surprised when this draft winds up concluding late this evening, to see a couple of these players on the trade market, getting offers with first and second round picks, because Michael obviously need to fill out his roster. So Javonte Williams on the board, $16 right now or $15 right now. Thoughts on Javonte?
Look, I all my RB. I have so few RB targets. Javante's not one of them. I refuse to let him go for like an obscene discount. So I'm gonna bet it right up until I think the point where I think it's fair. At this lower level, I'm just not letting him go for too cheap. Because if I end up winning him by a buck or two extra, which I just did, I am kind of okay with it. Because 15 to 20 is the range of like kind of producer who has a little bit of time left. I mean, for me, that's the same range that like Pollard might go for a little bit more than that. Right. But he's in that range of if he fails, I don't care that much, but there's still an upside case for the guy. If there was zero upside case, I wouldn't be about it. I don't love Javonte. Let me be the first person to say that I don't love Javonte Williams, but read the draft. The expensive guys went expensive, which typically means that the mid tier guys, and I put Javonte below the mid tier. Okay?
Yeah, I would as well.
Oh no!
What did Deontay Johnson just sell for? $5?
I tried to buy him. Oh my god! Oh, this is what hosting the show sucks. I kept getting an error message like you have to bid more than the current offer. Because
where did he go though? I don't even see. I
didn't click higher. Oh my god! Mike got him for $5, like for free. Oh my!
There he is on the board. I see him now.
Sure. I love Deontay.
Wow, what a steal!
That was absolutely insane. It shouldn't have happened. This is why, guys. But the worst thing that you could do, is host a show while live in your auction.
Don't say the worst thing that you can do. I think you just have to have a little bit of compartmentalization here. You got to be able to bid and talk and maneuver the board.
Bid, talk, drink at the same time. Phil, come on.
It gets tough, man. I know. I don't want to ask you to do too many things. There
were some Javonte McLaughlin reports out of Denver today that might be worth checking out. Well, it's a good thing that McLaughlin is also on my list for sure. Oh my goodness. Marv was one where I wasn't sure how high he would get bid up.
He's getting bid up. Me and Matty Wayland are in it pretty good here, and I've got to decide what I want to do. Do I want to I mean, looking at some of these prices, Rasta's hopping in here as well.
Dude, I kind of want to hop in, man. I
Yeah,
might.
jump in here. I mean, this is what it's all about, man. I mean, look, get your guys.
Victorious might be one of my favorite human beings. I appreciate that comment so much. I really do. By the way, huge shout out to Victorious. By the way, I am like a super fan of everything that is fantasy football content. I watch more of it than anyone realistically should. I sub and follow absolutely everybody. I hope everyone else does too. Support the industry. But Victorious got a little shout out on the league. It was the league Dynasty. It's the league FF, I think. Who am I thinking of? He's one of the BDGE guys. Very sharp, love him a lot. And I saw Victorious got shouted out in one of the live streams over there. Vike knows what I'm talking about. He's clear heard of it by now. But I was like, I was watching some other stuff and being like, man, Victorious makes his rounds, dude. He's watching all the streams. Everybody
That's
knows
great,
him.
man.
I thought that was
Yeah,
pretty
we
cool.
love
I'm like,
it.
hey, I know that guy.
He's in the streams. He's in the league. Shout out
He's
Victorious.
a gentleman I met online.
There you go. Isn't that funny, man? How it goes.
Dude,
Marvin Harrison going off the board here
Chase,
for
and Harrison on the same team?
128. Yeah, I mean, look, I go ahead. Take that one. Yep.
I don't even know if I've never seen this. This is the first one. This is novel. I have, in all my years of doing auction, I've been doing it for a while now. Me and you both clearly have. It's our favorite format.
Yep.
I have never seen 3 top 10 prospects at one position.
Yeah.
Go just like boom, boom, boom. He should have spent 135 on it, though. It would have been a little more.
That 137, 36, 35. Yeah, that would have been great. Look, I was in on Harrison. I'll be honest. I think it's no secret. Everyone's in on Marvin Harrison. I think it wasn't me being distracted with the show. It just got to a point where I just felt like,
yeah,
I haven't seen it yet. And is he really going to get into this range with now he's priced out as the wide receiver 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 so far in this league? Do I think he's going to be a top 5 guy? Yes. Do I think it's going to be this year? No. So I don't have any problem with somebody, Raf Danis here, spending, as $128 on his wide receiver 3 to get Marvin Harrison. To me is a fantastic value and a great buy. And, you may not get him next year at that price. He may be going at that top 5, wide receiver price. I have to put 25 players on a team here, and I've got to put 10 guys onto a starting lineup. So, yeah, Victorious in the comments. I can't wait to see the RB1 for Raf Dennis. Exactly. I think that's a great comment and call out because you got to field a team. So, to me, I agree. Go get your guys, but you still got to have some money to actually put some players on the field. Yeah, Matt Rasta in the comments. He has Chase, JJ, and MHJ. Not a fun team to play against on a weekly basis. Not someone we're going to be looking forward to playing against with those wide receivers. But again, what's the rest of the group going to look like? I'm interested to see what his draft, ends up coming out as. Chris Olave on the board here. I know you're Kendall. I know you're an Olave guy. I think you're pretty high on him. What are your thoughts on Chris Olave maybe taking that leap here in year 3 for him? Year 4? Year 4, I think, right?
No, I'm pretty sure he's only 22.
So year 3?
I'm sorry, he's not 22. He's 24. What am I saying? So would that make this is year 3. It's not 4 yet. It is year 3. I am an Olave guy.
Yep.
I was all about like, all right, guys, the market was too high on him, so I couldn't like him because everyone was like too Olave. I'm like, it's the Saints. They check down to Kamara 50 times a game.
Good point.
Offensive inefficiency is terrible. They start 2 quarterbacks per play sometimes. Weird stuff happens. They're the most unique offense in the NFL, realistically. I mean, they have a tight end, quarterback, running back that steals like 20% of the touchdowns a year. It's crazy. So I looked at Olave as a guy I needed the market to get really negative on quickly so that I could start buying him a little bit.
Yeah.
I like Olave. That offense looks like it will kind of function like a lot of 12 personnel with 2 wide receiver sets. The NFL has definitely moved from 2 wide receiver sets that it kind of started with to 3 wide receiver sets being more popular.
Yes, they have.
I think the Saints have a very condensed 1-2 punch, similar to what teams like the Detroit Lions, Kyler Murray and the Falcons, or I say Falcons, the Cardinals. These 1-2 punches. The Eagles are maybe the best example at wide receiver of a clear 1-2 punch condensed target share situation. I definitely see the Saints being that way, and I think they're going to mix in more RBs with less of a percentage exposure to passing to the RBs. I think it's going to go more to the wide receivers. They're going to have to learn to run a more traditional offense at some point. And when they do, I think Olave is one of the beneficiaries. I think he's had bad touchdown luck since he's entered the league. I think he's had very, very horrible red zone efficiency in general when they do make trips down there, because of no one else has as much target competition as Olave does in the red zone, given how they work the red zone from the Saints. And with their cap situation, I don't think they have the money to bring in many other people that can really be a difference maker. So I'm a big fan of Olave in terms of he's young, he's talented, he's proven, which matters when it comes to coaching. Right? Being proven is not about like what he's proven to me. It's about what he's proven to the NFL coaching staffs.
Right.
And I think that's going to earn him, basically 100% snap share. He's already the third down guy. So I like Olave, but it's a price situation. I don't see him as a world beater. He's super low end wide receiver 1. If anything, I have him as just a really safe high end wide receiver 2, wide receiver 13 or 14.
Yeah, and I think that's where I see him as well, is outside of that wide receiver 1 range, but not because of his usage and utilization, because of his touchdowns, right? And I think that's a Derek Carr problem more than it's a Chris Olave problem. It's interesting to me seeing Chris Olave go off the board here for $105 when AJ Brown went for $108, and Garrett Wilson looking like a good price value at $96. So
yeah, that was pretty good. I thought about bidding Wilson up to about 100. I really, really like Wilson.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I won't share my rankings until next week, but because they're both off the board, I have Garrett Wilson ahead of Chris Olave in my rankings. So to me, that's a good value. You are on the clock, by the way, to make a nomination. Kyron Williams going off the board as the last nominee for $58, which looks like an absolute great price for him right now. Do you need to take a moment? This is your guy. I can keep talking. I know you nominated him, but CJ Stroud on the board here as a nomination at $61 already here coming up. Obviously, we'll see some more bids here as we get under 10 seconds, but yeah, I'm with you on the Olave take, man. I think he's going to be really the wide receiver alpha and for a while in that offense. I know Victorious here. Quick question in the chat: are you worried about the impending doom of the Saints? And he adds, financially, I don't know if I'm worried about their impending doom, but I do have some pretty serious reservations about what they're going to look like going forward from a cap situation. Derek Carr's contract, Alvin Kamara's contract was restructured. I think the challenge for Chris Olave, quite simply, is I think Carr's probably the quarterback next year still, and I just don't trust him that much. So I just don't see Chris Olave being a double-digit threat to score, 10 touchdowns a season, even though I think he'll probably finish around 1,100, maybe 1,200 yards. What are your thoughts there? You think he can get to double digits and take that leap to wide receiver 1, or I know you just said you have him in kind of that wide receiver 12 to 14 range, but what do you think? You think he can do that? You think he can take the leap?
I think he can. I don't think it's like incredibly likely, but I definitely think it's within the range of outcomes. Like at least reasonably. Oh, you guys are going to make my guy expensive?
I mean, this is too cheap right here for Anthony Richardson. I've got to get in on this.
It's so painful. Dude, this is my guy.
I got to get in on this. This is too cheap. Go Gators. Anthony Richardson coming to play for Los Osos. Phil Ruskin.
I wanted to fight you on
$44. I'm very pleased with that. I didn't expect that at all.
You see the background here? Like, this has got to be it's just, I hate who nominated Richard. Like, it's a 10-team league, guys. They're going to be free quarterbacks. There's going to be absolutely free quarterbacks. I got to stay disciplined, man. I'm not spending $44 on a quarterback when I can have the QB 13 for $1.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that strat. For the folks that are listening that haven't turned into the show before, I've shared this, and if you're new, you'll hear this and it'll make you feel like you need to take a shower. I won a championship last year in a 2-quarterback league with Jarrett Stidham as my QB2. So it can be done.
Baited into paying 25 for Caleb.
Hey, Caleb Williams for $25 is great, man. That's a great purchase.
I love that. After that, I'm going to get a quarterback for $1 take.
I mean, you can, but the question is who. So it's an interesting draft right now. We have a couple guys that, really went hard early and spent a ton of money. We've got some guys, Juan Taco 79. I know he was playing in a poker tournament. Sounded like he was at the final table. So hopefully, Juan, if you're listening, hopefully you cashed out big, brother. He's just jumping in. He's only got one player on his team. I've been hosting the show with you, so I've got Anthony Richardson, which I kind of didn't think I would ever get for that price. So I don't have anybody
The
on
tough
my
part
team
is
yet.
like I have to trade you for him now. That's the problem. That is a
And
real
you
problem.
know the price, so it will be expensivo.
I will give you $44 real if I have to.
I might consider that. Real money is always better than fake money.
I can't do that.
Look, we've got a lot of players on this board still, man. We've got a lot of still the top running backs, are on the board. Some of the still, we've got Puka Nacua on the board here, and kind of that tier 2 of wide receivers still to go.
Dude, we might need a bet. We might need a season-long bet.
Oh yeah, what you got? What you thinking?
All right,
what you thinking?
All right, I'm gonna throw some. I need some odds though. Okay, give me some odds on this. All right, because the difference was $19.
Okay.
Well, hang on. Well, Josh Jacobs is just going too cheap right now. We got to price that a little bit. I was gonna say within 19 fantasy points of the total season, Caleb Williams, Anthony Richardson. Just give me a little. Give me a little wiggle room on that. How what's your spread on that?
19 points. You think fantasy Richardson points. You're taking the over that Richardson will outscore Caleb Williams by 19?
I'll say what double.
So you're setting the line at
Williams
19.
plus 38 points on the fantasy season over Richardson.
Williams plus 38 over Richardson. It's a 4-point scoring.
Oh, it's 4-point scoring. Oh shit, you should take that deal.
I'm going to take that because of the rushing.
And
I'm going to take that because of the rushing upside there for Richardson. I'll take that bet.
Oh,
we'll have to come up.
Caleb likes to run.
I don't forget that Caleb likes to run. I remember that Caleb is a rookie and he has 2 proven wide receivers in the NFL and 1 rookie that we expect to really be a contributing factor. So
I mean, Caleb Williams has like 5.
Oh, here's your guy. Here's your guy, Kendall. Jonathan Brooks.
Oh, Jesus.
You might need to get in on this here.
Yeah, I might need to.
I might need to get on this too. I'll be honest. I think you and I, again, we've talked about this, but I think you and I both agree that there's kind of the blue chip running backs, and then we'd rather take a shot on some of the rookies versus some of the guys that, we just kind of know what to expect for. I'm not a Josh Jacobs guy. That's why I wasn't bidding on him on the last one. I just don't believe he's going to have value for the next 2 or 3 years.
I broke my rule. I broke my rule, which is I never draft Bears players because the pain of losing a fantasy title and my dignity, which I've already lost as a Bears fan, but you know what I mean? Like, it's too much to put on Jonathan Brooks at 40. Oh my God, guys, what are we doing here?
Bid him up, brother. Bid him up. Get him to the right price because this is not the right price right now. In fact, I'm going to do it too. I'm going to get him to the right price.
Well, guys, we're at the right price. It's a running back in Dynasty.
Got Victorious saying, I bet you bid on Brooks, Benson, and Keon Coleman. Just a guess. Vike's been hanging out in the chat. He's been in some of my leagues. He's seen some of my snake drafts. Vike, you're right. I will be bidding on all those players. Whether I win them or not, it's a totally different conversation. But yeah. So I'll say this because I do think it's interesting. Kendall, I think you and I agree a lot. We don't want to have rookie fever to the point where our teams are just all rookies because that's not always going to pan out. We know that rookies bust. Wow, Jonathan Brooks getting up here in price, man.
Dude, I know. He's my guy. Why does everyone like my players? This is a nightmare.
Well, he's Bergie's player now.
Bergie bought him. Bergie knows I will back up the truck for Brooks at some point when I'm. Oh my God.
For the trade value, but look, you got Javonte for $18. If Javonte has some sort of a comeback, here's our
worth 17. That's the
true.
Bad part about buying Javonte for 18 is like objectively he just might be worth 17.
Stephon Diggs on the board here. I'm really curious. I'll be honest. If you're listening and you're in this draft, I'm not bidding on Stephon Diggs. I don't want him on my teams. He's a trade away candidate for me. I think you can absolutely get a 2nd round pick for him. I think if you find the right manager, especially the Stroud manager, you might be able to get a 1st. I don't think that's likely, but if you were to package it with something else, I think you could potentially get a 1st out of that trade for Diggs. Mike Chitwood getting in on this. Good. I expected him to with CJ Stroud. I would have expected him to try to grab a Houston wide receiver here. Diggs for $12 is going to be here it goes, 26. Yeah, it's interesting because I think there are sorry, to kind of go back on my point. I think there are some players like a Stephon Diggs who just went off the board for $25, which is a great price. I'd rather take a shot on a rookie. I'd rather take a shot on a Keon Coleman and just get the upside in the youth over what I know, some of these mid-range players are going to produce. So it's always interesting in these auction drafts, where guys see value differently. And obviously the money, different than a snake draft where you're investing, your second or third round pick, and hoping another player that you're targeting gets back to you. Here, you can bid on every player. You can technically win 3-4 players in a row. So yeah, it's really, there we go. Puka going up in price. Is it me and you? There it goes. There it goes.
We should, oh, jeez.
We have some quiet audio here. While
I was gonna add a few more bucks, but Puka's not. I don't think he gets to he doesn't get into the hundreds for me for sure.
No, he shouldn't get into the hundreds. Not with some
he doesn't really get into the 90s for me, which is tough because I don't want to overpay. We're already in the high digits here.
Yeah, he's at 80.
This is gonna be a $1 either way thing, dude.
91, $90. We're within $5 of Garrett Wilson. Rasta getting in on this.
Shit. Puka. Feels pricey, man. Feels pricey.
Victorious. NFMTR, my buddy Mike, with the best team in the league so far. Deontay Johnson doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Look, we've talked about Mike a fair few times already in the show. He's always got good teams, man. He's always got good players, and his teams after a draft never look like what his teams, actually roll out week one. I've been in a league with him going into year 3 now in a separate league, and I'll be honest, man, I couldn't even tell you what his team looked like at the auction startup draft to what it looks like today. I would wager over 60 to 70% of his team has changed, which again, if you're listening, is my advice. You should always be trying to turn your roster over. You have your foundational building blocks, but after that, you should be trying to get younger. You should be trying to get higher upside players. And I think really good strategy for those that are newer to Dynasty, regardless of the format of your startup draft, snake, or auction. Go back and look at your team that you started each league with and look at what it looks like today. If the majority of your team looks like what your team was that you drafted, unless your team is phenomenal, chances are you're probably not a playoff team. And I really encourage people to do that because you really need to be thinking about upgrading your players, taking a different stance on some of these rookies, and trying to get a little bit different. For me, it's always really interesting to see, hey, unless you've drafted, the cream of the crop blue chip players and you just are set in a, 3 to 4 year window, it's really interesting to see where you can still extract value from guys on your original roster to where you can try to grab rookie picks or make some trades for different veterans. So couple more minutes here, Kendall. I think what we're probably going to do, obviously, is it'll take us about 3 or 4 hours tonight. And I have one player on my team I'd like to jump in and start bidding here. But I think we'll probably just give, 1 or 2 quick takes. Anybody that really stands out to you as a guy that, you think you see on the board that was a good price. And then after you finish that, tell the folks where they can find your content as well.
We'll see if we get Devin H in here. He's been rising up my boards a lot. It's scary. It's super, super scary. He might be a flag plant for me this year, though.
Yeah.
You should check me out at the Fantasy Football Tavern for sure. That is definitely where you should do. I'm doing a lot of mock drafts. Going to start my underdog best ball series coming up soon.
Nice.
When I say series, we're just going to do 1 million of them. All right, well, we got a flag plant. Look at that. We got.
There you go. Look at you with a running back room.
Was that 63?
Yeah.
That's within range.
63. That'll work.
It's okay. Well, Gibbs went for 500, right? So I got
Gibbs reset the market, man.
You tell me if it's Gibbs for 103 or HN who's 10% of Gibbs. I'm gonna take HN at 63. I didn't think I started the season so off on Devin HN, and now I'm kind of like a hero for him. So yeah, I think how that goes.
he's the ultimate efficiency guy, right? Like he's never going to dominate snap count. He's never going to be a 3-down back, but he doesn't need to be. I mean, you look at last season, he can play, 30 to 40% snap and still win you a week and put up double digit points with, with very limited touches. So we'll see. Kendall, man, I know you and I are probably going to FaceTime or something after this to hang out and just keep the chat going privately, but thanks for being on tonight, man. I'm excited to do this again with you tomorrow. I know we've got the annexation of Puerto Rico, another Dynasty auction startup draft tomorrow night. So Kendall will be back with me at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. A little different than the content we normally do tonight, kind of a silly little, let's just kind of talk through some of this as the draft's going on. A little distracting if I'm trying to bid on players. But hey, we're all learning at the end of the day. I'm really excited for next Thursday's show to go and break down some of these rosters to see how things wind up, especially if you are someone who was listening. Did I just lose Rashad White? No. Okay, good. Especially if you're someone who was listening, and saw some of these big expensive players go off the board early and you want to see how some of these teams wound up. Tune in next Thursday to the Extra Point, and that'll be at its normal day, Thursdays, normal time, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for joining in another episode of The Extra Point, and look forward to seeing you all back tomorrow night at 4 p.m. for, I can't lose Rashad White for another startup draft.
Like and subscribe to The Extra Point, though. Phil is going to come up with some outrageous content.
Do this.
If you are newish to Dynasty, subscribe to The Extra Point. Phil's going to help you win some leagues and be competitive. If you're into Dynasty, but you want to level up a part of your game just a little bit extra, that's what The Extra Point is all about. Those little 1% to 2% edges you can gain through a little bit of theory crafting for knowing a little bit of philosophy, just going one level deeper, not 10 levels deeper, 1 year at a time, 1 day at a time. That's what Phil is all about. I spend so much time with him off stream, just talking football. I can tell you there's a lot to learn. He was also a college coach, believe it or not. So he's got the real life experience of dealing with crazy.
That's where all the gray hair came from. So it's not just I mean, I've got a young daughter who I love to death and she's my whole world, but I'll be honest, man, coaching college at that level, that'll give you the gray hair. So
yeah,
Kendall, appreciate the shout. Appreciate you being a guest here on the show, and look forward to seeing you again tomorrow night, buddy. Thanks for everyone who tuned in to the Extra Point tonight, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody back tomorrow and again next Thursday to recap all of this mayhem that has occurred. Thanks, y'all. Have a great night.
Cheers.